A whole new season of Fanatec GT2 European Series is set to get underway here at Paul Ricard with a bigger grid than we've had in the past, some new cars, new drivers, new teams, and the first of two 50-minute races of the weekend set to entertain on a circuit that has very fast sections, some twiddly bits, and of course the race itself, the championship regulations with the mandatory pit stop. So you'll have in some cases driver changes, but not exclusively, because there are one or two cars with just a solo driver. Come race two, factor in pit stop penalties, the so-called compensation time awarded to the top three out of the Pro-Am and the Am categories from this first race. David Addison trackside cars making their way round to the grid based on the standalone qualifying session held yesterday. For the GT2 teams, their weekend is a little bit shorter than others, in as much as they have both races today, with the second one coming up right at the very end of a busy day here at Paul Ricard Circuit, finishing at around about 10 to 8 tonight, so they'll be racing perhaps into the dusk. Certainly the light will be fading. Whether they get to darkness, we'll have to wait and see. But it's an extra element for the larger gentleman driver entry, and then they get Sunday off, many of whom I suspect will still come back to the circuit and enjoy a day of GT racing. But the Paul Ricard track is a great place for a GT car, whether it's a GT2, GT3 or GT4, and a lot of hard work has gone into Fanatec GT2, and SRO Motorsports Group has been rewarded with a bigger entry than we've had in the past, with on pole position Leonardo Guarini returning to the championship after having been one of the front runners last season. Leonardo Guarini in number one will start on pole position with the new Maserati GT2, one of the exciting additions to the championship this year, and Leonardo Guarini driving for LP Racing, sharing with Carlo Tamburini, another experienced racer, most recently in the Italian GT Championship. Eric Dodonka there, sharing the Mercedes with Loris Hezemans, the one driver here this weekend who was on the original BPR grid here 30 years ago when that nascent series began. And it's great that he's still racing, still involved, and continuing that link. Then it was BPR, the Jürgen Barth, Patrick Peter, Stefan Rattel organisation, which of course then morphed into SRO, Stefan going it alone, but still with good relations with Jürgen Barth and Patrick Peter, evinced by Patrick supplying historic grids for us on occasions for support races. And Eric Dodonka, who went on to race in GT4 and occasionally in GT3, now on a GT2 grid. Was slightly delayed here at Paul Ricard because of a red flag earlier on in the day, but as the teams are putting themselves on the grid ready for a 50-minute race with the mandatory pit stops coming up between the 20 and 30-minute mark. It's 128 seconds, the pit stop line to line. There you can see number 87, Jean-Luc Bobelic. He will go first in the Mercedes, and 24, looking down onto the grid, the TFT Racing Alexandre Leroy Maserati GT2. Fantastic cars, and as ever, a category is born, manufacturers have a look and ponder, and then Stefan Rattel goes and talks to them and explains the benefits to them as a brand, and they all agree. So we've got Maserati joining this year. We have had Porsche in the past, although no Porsches on the entry list as yet for this season, but we do have, oh no, we have one Porsche, I'll tell you a lie, we do have the Proton car for Patrick Dinkeldine, we have got Audi back, we've got KTMs as well. So it's a good mix as the cars are wriggling into place with their Ronnie Bremer, who, if you've got a long memory, you might record in Formula Ford in the UK before he went on to briefly race champ cars in America. As ever, with the GT grid, it's not just the shape of the car, but it's the sound that they make as well. And for LP Racing, that is Philippe Pret's Maserati. His son, Louis Pret, racing this weekend in GT3. Philippe, twice the Asia-Pacific Ferrari Challenge champion. New to GT2, good to have him joining the ranks this year. And in a sense, it makes a good bit of reasoning, really. Your son's racing in one category. If you want to come to the event and support him, you may as well go racing as well. The KTM, with the distinctive up and forward bodywork. There you can see the Racing Lab car. Ronnie Bremer will go first. Jakob Mathiessen will do the second stint in that car. And it's a KTM at the back of the grid as well, Hubert Trunkenpoltz, who lost most of his flying laps for track limit offences, but also had mechanical problems in free practice as well, so wasn't really able to rely on a time from those to prove to the stewards how quick he would have been. But he has been allowed in come what may. He's raced here often enough in the last couple of years. Leonardo Guarini then will start, former Lamborghini Super Trofeo racer from pole position, and he has been in the early days of what was then the Blancpain Endurance Series in the Gentleman Trophy, which is kind of the AM Cup now, I suppose, and was third in the AM Championship last year. Grid starting to be cleared. It's a rolling start, of course, as befits any good GT grid. So they'll have the formation lap behind the Lamborghini safety car that we have these days, or pace car as it will be, but Lamborghini, the suppliers to SRO for the course vehicles. And at the end of the lap, then the field will be released. And round one of Fanatec GT2 European Series, powered by Pirelli, will be in business. These cars will use the chicane on the Mistral straight just to reduce the speeds a little bit before they get to Signes. The pit window is going to be interesting to see who pits when, and indeed, in the case of the double driver entries, whether or not the second driver is going to be faster or slower and how that shuffles the order. This is aimed... To say gentleman racer is a little bit unfair, really, but those that perhaps aren't looking at a career anymore, let's phrase it that way. But there are some very experienced and very competitive people within this entry. So once we get underway, start to have a look at the grid, you'll identify one or two names from GT racing that we're familiar with. The 1 minute board is shown, so engines now fire up. Leonardo Guarini sharing with Carlo Tamburini on pole position. Jan Krabec, last year's AM champion, second on the grid, sharing with Matej Homora, who's been a very quick touring car racer in the European and the WTCR of recent seasons. Third on the grid, Philippe Pret with his Ferrari pedigree. Fourth on the grid, Ronnie Bremer, Formula Ford turned Champ Car Atlantic and IndyCar pedigree. Then you've got Martin Koch starting fifth in another of the KTMs that he shares with Reinhard Koffler. Martin Koch we saw in GT4 European Series last year. And Alexandre Leroy, who's been largely in historic racing to begin with, but then came into Carrera Cup France. He's going to start sixth on the grid with Jean-Luc Bobelic seventh. Now, I stopped there, if only to mention the fact that JLB is here, is present. He has been a stalwart SRO racer, not quite since day one, but it feels like it. And as the green flag is waved, Jean-Luc Bobelic in his Mercedes. Good to have him on a SRO grid once again. He will share that car with another experienced and redoubtable character, Gilles Vannelet. So the green flag shown, the cars accelerate off the grid. Not for the start of the race, but for the parade lap, the formation lap. And it is going to be Leonardo Guarini on pole position with Jan Krabec alongside. Philippe Pret starts third, Ronnie Bremer fourth. So Maserati KTM, then another KTM and another Maserati, where Martin Koch is ahead of Alexandre Leroy. The two Mercedes, Jean-Luc Bobelic ahead of Pascal Gibon. Another Mercedes, Eric de Doncker. The KTM of Sedi Samini alongside to round out the top 10. 11th is where you find the KTM of Dennis Liebel. And Mauro Ricci with his Mercedes next, ahead of Stéphane Perrin. Then the sole Porsche, the Proton competition car of Patrick Dinkeldine. Stefan Rattel's Audi is 15th on the grid. Thomas Anderson 16th. There's a saga attached to that car. I'll come back to in a second with Hubert Trunkenpoltz completing the grid. Number 80 then, 16th on the grid, and the car to be started by Thomas Anderson. His co-driver, Simon Birch, in his qualifying session, got involved in an accident with Stéphane Perrin, for which the car has been given a 5-place grid drop for the next race it competes in. So not the one started by Simon Birch as the transgressor, but for the car in general. So that means that although Simon Birch committed the offence, in a sense, it is Thomas Anderson who suffers, because it puts him 5 places back on the grid for this first race, if you're with me. That's the chicane on the Mistral straight, through which they will turn left, and then right, and then left back onto the Mistral. The link between the left and the right, it's almost a short straight rather than a quick flick of a chicane. It's a more gradual corner here to build up the speed again as you come back onto the Mistral straight. Towards the end of the lap, the cars will get themselves into that side-by-side formation, ready for the start of the race. And Leonardo Guarini switching from Porsche to the very exciting Maserati, which of course we've seen as a winning brand in FIA GT and then in FIA GT1 World Championships. Good to have them back on the grid. Maserati's motorsport program somewhat enhanced in the last season or two, what with the Formula E involvement as well as GT2, and the car looks good, sounds good, and no doubt could well be on for a race win come the end, given the pace of Leonardo Guarini in the qualifying session yesterday. So the cars now turn their way on towards Le Beausset in a moment to turn through, getting themselves in grid formation, and then up towards the timing line, and the race start is therefore imminent. Guarini just around about 4/10 quicker than Jan Krabec in the qualifying session for these cars yesterday. So the blue Maserati then with the black and white and orange striped KTM alongside. The rest of the cars now putting themselves into the correct formation, ready for this rolling start as they move their way up towards the Virage de la Tour, then onto the Virage du Pont, and then towards the end of this formation lap. So the Lamborghini safety car, the pace car as it is, making sure that nobody goes too rapidly. The race director, Joël Doval, will be coordinating the start process from race control. And this on board with Leonardo Guarini, the pole position car, making its way then down towards Virage de la Tour. Pit in on the right-hand side, but these cars will go down to the sharp right-hander of Virage du Pont, and then the start of the race. The pace car peels in. It's up to the front row drivers now to control the start with the lights on red. 50 minutes, not a set number of laps. Flag will go out the first time the leader crosses the line once 50 minutes have elapsed. And round one of the Fanatec GT2 European Series here from Paul Ricard is about to get underway. The lights go green. It is a good getaway by Guarini and a good start by Pret as well. He gets himself up into second place then. So the Maserati is very, very good in a straight line to the inside line. Jan Krabec tries to defend, but other people have gone right round the outside, or try to go right round the outside. So he comes out of the corner third, but it is Guarini ahead of Pret then. The two LP Racing Maseratis clear of the rest of the pack. The Mercedes contingent in the meantime exploring the boundaries. Pascal Gibon's car running out wide, and from the drone look down as they dive into Virage de l'Hôtel, then on towards the Virage du Camp for the first time. Great shot that as the drone hangs over the field. And he's very nearly up into fourth place as it comes up towards turn 6 now. So the drone is in contention. Out of turn 7 go the race leaders onto the Mistral, and Leonardo Guarini trying to make good his escape. But the quick starting Philippe Pret going after him. Jan Krabec then in third, moving up from Am to Pro-Am this year. So he's in the same mix as Leonardo Guarini. Philippe Pret, though, is in the Am class running on his own. Big dive there, look to the inside line, and Ronnie Bremer goes through on the inside line to take third away from Krabec. So the two KTMs do a switch. Ronnie Bremer powering on, having been racing most recently in sports cars in America. Good to have him back in Europe as they file now through Signes for the first time. So the leaders go on towards Le Beausset. And out of the Mercedes battle a little bit further back, Jean-Luc Bobelic, Pascal Gibon, Eric de Doncker, the three involved in that inter-brand fight. The leading Maseratis, though, gapping the KTMs, who are now getting themselves together en masse, third, fourth and fifth, as they come up through Bendor for the first time. So Leonardo Guarini, the race leader, adapting well to him, the new car. 77 Porsche of Patrick Dinkelstein fending off the opposition with the Thomas Anderson KTM looking for a way past. That car, in theory, should be able to do so, having been quicker in qualifying before the grid drop came. But the leaders then put one lap in the book as they come over the line, and it is Guarini in the lead from Philippe Pret. Now, Pret has the advantage of going solo in this race, so that car's going to run at the same pace race long. Big challenge for third, look, for fourth, I should say, as Martin Koch gets up the inside of Jan Krabec. So Ronnie Bremer is ahead of the pair. Now Martin Koch up to fourth, and Krabec from second on the grid drops to fifth, just ahead of Jean-Luc Bobelic in the Mercedes, who, as you look down from the drone, is on the inside line. Jean-Luc Bobelic will brake as late as he dares into Virage de l'Hôtel and goes through. Good pass that by JLB. Jean-Luc Bobelic up to fifth place now. Has Jan Krabec then got a problem because he's fallen back from second on the grid, now into sixth place in just over a lap. Not great, bearing in mind the car qualified so nicely. The leaders are out of turn 7 then, onto the Mistral straight, lap number 2. Clock ticks on down, of course, getting us towards the first target, which is the opening of the pit window. And right now, Ronnie Bremer is perhaps becoming the dark horse here because he's really charging. He's getting onto the back of Philippe Pret. So Bremer 4th on the grid, up to 3rd here a lap ago, and closing on Pret, who in turn is dropping back a little bit, dare one say now, from Leonardo Guarini. So the gap between the Maseratis is widening for the lead, but it's coming down 2nd to 3rd as Pret is being closed on a little bit by Bremer. And then you've got Koch up to 4th, Bobelik 5th, and Jan Krabec 6th. Is it lower than 6th? He says, peering into the pack coming towards senior, because if Krabec has got a problem, there's a chance that more of the pack will have gone by. 53 Mercedes of Pascal Gibon goes by. And Gibon in turn pressing on again onto the back of Stéphane Perrin and another of the Mercedes. Those two both in the AM Cup, which is being led by Philippe Pret. And although they're running 11th and 12th in the order, they're 6th and 7th in the AM Cup right now. There's also the Iron Cup for the combination of drivers whose combined age is over 100. And there, Philippe Pret accelerates now out of Virage Dupont up towards the line. This, if you like, the first proper flying lap of the race thus far. And so Leonardo Guarini goes by, doing on that lap a 2 minute 6.7. And Ronnie Bremer in 3rd, a 2 minute 6.8. So he's on a comparable pace to the leader. If he can clear Pret and go after Guarini, there could well be a battle on. There's a yellow flag out in the final sector of the lap. You can see on the graphic the little yellow for S3. Sector 3 has a drama within. And, oh dear, I rather fear it might be Stéphane Rattel, who has not come by yet. The green flag is now shown in that sector. So the road is clear. Stéphane Rattel's got going again, but it was not a spin. It was possibly a mechanical drama, the car hesitating, and Stéphane has got it moving again, and he comes up towards the line. So big frustration for Stéphane Rattel. The pleasant element of this for him is that he's now got more cars to try to overtake, in proof of the fact that it's a much bigger grid for this year, which is great for the category. There are the leaders going now through the chicane. So Guarini, Pret, Bremer, the top 3. A little bit further back, the KTM and Maserati battle, Jan Krabec versus Alexandre Leroy. Then you've got Mauro Ricci ahead of Seti Sramini, Denis Liebel. Next up, in 10th place, number 90, the white KTM. These KTM crossbows, if you like, a good lower cost way of going GT2 racing. But it's great that we've got some of the premium brands, not just Audi, not just Mercedes, but now Maserati joining Porsche also on the grid. So the lead gap is starting to extend, but Philippe Pret under attack from Ronnie Bremer, who was slightly quicker in sector 1 and slightly down in sector 2, but of course the middle sector with the Mistral is perhaps where the Maserati can use all of that pace, whereas Ronnie Bremer in 3rd, he's good through the twiddly bits in the KTM. So Ronnie Bremer comes there, number 10 KTM towards the line. Just bear in mind though that in terms of the final outcome of that battle, Bremer will give way to Jakob Mathiesen, whereas Philippe Pret will continue to the very end. So the pace that the number 2 Maserati can run at now should be what it does all the way through the race. Whereas a change of co-driver might mean that the number 10 KTM is a little bit slower in the second stint. There, on the inside line, Alexandre Leroy looking for a way past Jan Krabec, but to no avail there. Krabec able to keep Leroy behind, as down they come towards Virage de l'Hôtel once more. The lead gap is 2 seconds now, Leonardo Guarini having done another fastest lap of the race. And they turn their way up from turns 5 to 6. In other words, out of the Virage du Camp to Saint-Baume, many of the corners named after local towns. And then turn 7 brings them onto the Mistral. This is where the grunt of a car will kick in. This is where the Jean-Luc Bobelik Mercedes starts to edge away from Jan Krabec. A little bit further back here, Mauro Ricci, having lost out to Seti Samini, is trying to defend 9th place now from Denis Liebel. Up to the chicane they come. Liebel in turn, though, has now got Stéphane Perrin not only behind him, but almost on the inside there. Perrin looking for a gap, and Liebel gets all crossed up, and there's contact, and around goes the KTM. It was sideways. It came across the front of the Mercedes that had really no option but to shovel it out of the way because the Mercedes had the pace, couldn't just stop. So that's brought out the yellow flag at the chicane. It was all triggered, as you saw, by Dennis Liebel going a bit deep into the chicane and losing traction. Then the car spun across the front of the Mercedes, Stefan Perrin, and now Liebel is facing the wrong way. He'll try and get going as quick as he can, the GT4 and KTM Crossbow Championship regular. But for the moment, yellow flag down at the chicane on the Mistral. The leaders are about to put 4 laps in the book as they come through, and it is Leonardo Guarini in the lead of the race with the gap down again, looks second to third. But behind them is a charging Martin Koch. There he is in number 812. He has done an absolute best in the first sector. Another new fastest lap of the race, though, by Guarini. So over the course of a lap, the Maserati strong, but in the sectors, you can see how well the KTMs are going. And now, Philippe Pret under real attack for his second place because Guarini clear in the lead. He's fled, but Bremer has arrived right on the tail now. And as they come down to Virage de l'Hôtel with Martin Koch fourth and also pushing on, second, third, fourth, concertinaing as they come now into the approach to turn 5. Safety car is being deployed. Brilliant shot this from the drone, and a change for second place. Now, has that been done in time? No, Bremer made the move, and I think Venn got the call back out of it because of the safety car, and that's exactly what he did. You saw it from that great drone shot looking down over turns 5 and 6. Bremer made a dive up the inside, but the safety car had already been called, so the right thing to do was back out of it, give the place back to Philippe Pret, and he will fight another day. Now, all of this with, what, 10 minutes or so to go before the pit window opens is really bad news for the race leader Leonardo Guarini. He was 3 seconds to the good, and that lead is, of course, likely to completely disappear while the safety car is on track because it will reduce that advantage completely. And all the gaps will come down. It gives perhaps Bremer and Koch a chance to challenge on the restart. And for the moment, the safety car required because that KTM didn't restart and needs to be peeled out of the way. Now, my new favourite drone shot has just been giving great pictures of that almost overtake for second place. We might have another look at it. And this is from a different angle, from ground level, as you see Ronnie Bremer right up behind, made the move, but the safety car had been called, so he did exactly the right thing, backed out of it, held station, and therefore Pret, Bremer, Koch, second, third, fourth. Now, this is fantastic, isn't it? So looking down from the drone, you see the KTM make a move to the inside. Philippe Pret, I think, a little bit surprised about that. Look, because he almost turned in and then had to dart left and give Bremer the room because he got the call about the safety car and reacted fractionally faster than Bremer did. But the good news is no contact, and the order is correct, so there's nothing for race control to have to unravel, and that battle will continue for however many minutes, of course, before the window opens for the pit stops, the mandatory pit stops. So, safety car on track, there it is, the Lamborghini. Safety car that we have for SRO Motorsports events this year, leading the 2 Maseratis, Leonardo Guarini and Philippe Pret. The margin had crept up, even on that safety car start lap, to 4 seconds, but it's going to be about 4 meters by the time they restart. And Leonardo Guarini now tries to work out what's best on the restart. Do I stay out for as long as possible? Do I try and build up the lead? Or do I pit early and put Carlo Tamburini into the car? Tamburini, third in the sprint Pro-Am Championship of Italian GT last year, and second in the endurance part of Pro-Am in the Italian GT Championship last year. In other words, a very good GT driver. The safety car will be in this lap, so it's effectively just over a lap of safety car, but the race under this full caution period, and a safety car lap is going to be around about 4 minutes. So the race will be back on. The leaders will probably get 2 laps near enough before they need to worry about the pit stop window opening. But maybe those at the back can bail a bit sooner. So this is Guarini's view coming up towards the Mistral chicane. Big frustration in all of this is that Stefan Rattel's Audi does not seem to be very healthy yet. There's a problem of some description, and Stefan is trying to play catch-up. He's getting there, but he might join the back of the queue round about Le Beausset, but he's having to hustle on, obviously respectful of the yellow flags, but wanting to catch the crocodile of cars, which would then in turn give him a chance to possibly challenge Hubert Trunkenpol's KTM for a place before the end of the race. There, going through was Hubert Trunkenpol's. Stefan is driving on his own, at least this weekend. Last year, remember, he had a co-driver in Mattia Di Giusto, but this weekend, Stefan, a soloist. On top of everything else you have to do when you're the CEO of a championship, or 3 championships here, on a race weekend. So there's a lot for him to do. First round with new people, new teams, people asking questions, commercial deals to look after as well. There's an awful lot going on. So this is probably Stefan's calm time, being behind the wheel of a race car. So the field all ready to go. The safety car will peel in this time. We'll be back racing. And then number 61, Mauro Ricci, who we've seen on occasions in GT3, but most recently GT4, switched to GT2 last year, along with Benjamin, his son. And expect the Riccis to be good in that Pro-Am fight. So the safety car is in. The lights on the gantry will go back to green. The green flag is ready on the start line. And the race is back on then. So round 1 of Fanatec GT2 European Series powered by Pirelli back underway. And that is going to give us just under 6 minutes before the pit window is open. So they can press on for actually 3 or 4 laps at the front of the queue. And Leonardo Guarini once more tries to build that lead over Philippe Pret then. Ronnie Bremer not able to attack on the restart, but this, where it's tight and twisty, plays into the hands of the KTM. He knows he's got to get the work done round about here because on the Mistral, so the Maserati has the chance of pulling away once again. And a big, big dive. This time it works. This time it's legit for Bremer, and contact behind us. Pret gets turned around. Martin Koch was on the inside. Contact between the two, and it's a Maserati facing the wrong way, this time between turns 5 and 6. I think Pret just ran a little bit wide, and as he came back onto the line, that's where there was the clash between them. So hopefully the Maserati can restart, but that's going to change the lead now in the AM class. That's going to put Jean-Luc Bobelic into the lead of AM. Pret is ready. He's got going again, but way, way down the order as a consequence. Stefan Rattel is ahead of Hubert Trunkenpolz now, and the one that we've lost from the race is Dennis Liebel. Of course, he was the one that triggered the safety car. So it changes for second, and it might change again for the lead. You never know. If Ronnie Bremer can now start to go after Leonardo Guarini, he'll be all fired up. There is Stefan Rattel in 88 Audi, the GT2 Audi R8, with that different look to the rear of the car. Audi, one of the first brands to commit to the championship as the leaders work their way out of senior. You can see 1 or 2 running really wide there, but as long as you rejoin the road with those little markers on the left-hand side of the car, not the right, then you're okay. There's the lead battle. Ronnie Bremer now all fired up. He knows that his stint is coming to an end. Equally, Guarini's stint is coming to an end, so both would like to be ahead when they come into the pit lane. Jan Krabec, in the meantime, there is on the back of Jean-Luc Bobelic. Remember that Krabec is another in the Pro-Am fight. Bobelic is now the AM class leader, Gilles Vannelet being the driver that he will hand over to as up they come out of the Virage du Pont towards the timing line once more. Through they come. The incident between Dennis Liebel and Pascal Gibon under investigation. Krabec and Alexandre Leroy go through with the Maserati on the outside line, but unable to take advantage. Jan Krabec hangs onto the place then. They rattle over the curb, they accelerate out of the corner, and together now make that run down towards the Virage de l'Hôtel, with the Maserati still absolutely determined to have a go at the KTM. There's half a sniff of half a gap on the inside, and it doesn't really pay out. So yet again, Leroy has to slot back in. They're not that far behind Jean-Luc Bobelic either, so this battle, in a sense, might be spurring them on. Yes, Krabec was, in terms of a best lap time, faster last lap through, and onto the Mistral straight they come now on lap 8 with just 3 minutes to go before the pit window opens. So we've got Leonardo Guarini a second to the good. His last lap was fractionally quicker than Ronnie Bremer. The Maserati probably over the course of the lap just that little bit stronger, and more dramas. That is Sedi Sarmini coasting to a halt. That's at pit out, but he's not going to get in anybody's way. That car will be easily moved before pit stops become a thing. So big disappointment here for KTM. That's 2 of their number gone. 1 in contact, 1 with an incident. So Seti Sarmini out of the race as Jean-Luc Bobelik goes through senior ahead of Jan Krabec, who's still under attack from Alexandre Leroy, the former historic racer turned Carrera Cup France racer in the yellow and black Maserati. And then another good Mercedes battle, Mauro Ricci ahead of Pascal Gibon, with there Thomas Anderson having got himself up past Stéphane Perrin now. So 9th place has had a change. Perrin falling back behind Anderson, who was good in qualifying, but he's trying to recover from that 5th-place grid drop sustained earlier on. Krabec then now up towards the Virage Dupont, up towards the end of lap number 8. Ronnie Bremer on this lap, faster in sectors 1 and 2 than he had been hitherto, and closing on Gorini in the first sector, but it's the Mistral that does for the KTM, I'm afraid. So it's 11/10 of a second as they come over the line, and the last lap fractionally better by Gorini than by Bremer. Again, Leroy makes his challenge on the outside line. Again, Jan Krabec is able to fend him off. And that Maserati, don't forget, of Alexandre Leroy, the bronze-graded driver, solo entry, solo driver. So that car can carry on at that pace to the checkered flag. Krabec will hand over the KTM on the pit stops. Down they come into the braking zone. No way through there for Alexandre Leroy. Jan Krabec will give way to Mato Homola. Very, very quick touring car racer, so one to watch in that second stint as they go into turn 6 here. Just over a minute before the window opens, so one or two teams might roll the dice and come in sooner. But if you've got your quicker driver in for the first stint, you'll keep him out for as long as you possibly can. Maximise the track time available. So the AM leader, Jean-Luc Bobelik, 4th overall, and the Mercedes is there. He will give way to another very experienced campaigner, Gilles Vannelet. Jean-Luc Bobelik, who has for so long been partnered by Jim Pla. Jim has flown the Mercedes-AMG nest for this weekend at least. He's in a Santalog Audi in GT3, but concentrating on that rather than GT2 or GT4 even, Jim Pla. There further back, Stéphane Rattel is making progress, although I rather fear he's lost a place now to Philippe Pret's recovering Maserati, so Pret back ahead of him. Leonardo Gorini coming through. The pit window will be open in 5 seconds time. So let's see if anybody bails at the end of this lap. Krabec to give way to Homola might be a way of keeping that car ahead net of Alexandre Leroy. The Mercedes fight here, Ricci versus Gibon. Pro-Am ahead of Am. Pascal Gibon turns through, number 53, that car that is shared with Christophe Bourret. Again, another experienced French GT racer. And Gibon does a full send up the inside of Ricci and goes by. That was brave stuff, wasn't it? Ricci pits to give away to Benjamin Ricci. Already in, though, is Martin Koch, Jean-Luc Bobelik and Jan Krabec. So the pit lane gets very busy very early. So Gorini and Bremer, still 11/10 of a second between the two. Leonardo Gorini has just done yet another fastest lap of the race, as around the 8:12 KTM runs Reinhard Koffler, whose racing career goes back a long, long time. Had a few years off and then found drives again, and it's good to have him back racing. Reinhard Koffler should make that car fly. Martin Koch is not slow, as we've seen. So the 812 KTM, one to watch in the second stint of the race. More cars coming down the pit lane. So Stéphane Perrin is in, Eric Dedonca is in. Thomas Anderson is in to give way to Simon Birch. Hubert Trunkenpolz is in. And there, 888. Stéphane Perrin's car from the NM Racing team will be taken over by Jörg Wiebahn, who's again a very experienced driver from GT4 as well as GT2 events. And the race leaders looking to the eyes that they might have been a little bit closer that time around. But again, it's Bremer in the first sector taking 2/10 out of the Maserati. Then the middle sector is where the Maserati stretches its legs once again and starts to pull away. So over the lap, the KTM loses out, but there are sectors in which he's quicker. Alexandre Leroy is up into 3rd behind them and lapping quicker than he had hitherto, now that he's got clear road ahead of him with the Jan Krabec KTM having pitted, so it opens up the road for Leroy to get on with the job. And then up into 4th place should be Pascal Gibon, who has stayed out. But the race leader, Leonardo Gorini, comes now up towards the end of the lap. The decision, whether it's going to be from him, whether it's going to be from the team, will be made as to bring him in or keep him out, and he's in. So Ronnie Bremer will inherit the race lead. I think he'd like to have done it on merit, wouldn't he, and overtaken, but with the leader peeling into the pit lane, Leonardo Gorini then comes down pit lane, and Ronnie Bremer will put himself as a lap leader, comes over the line, and does so. So the KTM is ahead as we approach the halfway mark. And there, look, the cars that have pitted joining, or some of them, joining in behind the race leaders. So for the moment, they've dropped off the lead lap. They'll get that back when Ronnie Bremer pits. That's Gorini in, and Carlo Tamburini walks around the car. He's raced touring cars as well as GT cars most recently. But now, in a sense, he's got the pressure on him. He's got to keep that car in the lead of the race after the pit stops have all done and all cycled through. Pit stop time is 128 seconds, pit in line to pit out, so there's no hurry. If you're a soloist, you do have to get out of the car these days in this championship, but it's not got the same urgency as, let's say, a GT3 sprint race would have, where the pit stops are natural ones, as quick as you can. Again, this is to make life a little bit easier for the AMs, take less pressure on their shoulders, and make the pit stops a little bit safer as well. So Carlo Tamburini able to take his time, getting on board. He'll be strapped in. There's no mad panic here. If you are under the 128 seconds, then expect penalties. If you're over it, well, you kind of penalise yourself. And we'll measure the pit stop of the #1 Maserati against #10 KTM when we get to that point when Ronnie Bremer peels in. But at the moment, he is trying to stay out so that he can give as big an advantage as possible to Jakob Mathiesen in the second stint. Right, #1 Maserati sounds fantastic. Charges away now down the pit lane. There is Reinhard Koffler in 8.12. Coming up towards Virage Dupont. So he's about to come past the pits, but it's a long pit straight here. And #1 Maserati is up to racing speed now as it accelerates down the pit lane and feeds back in. Don't cross that white line, all good there. So Tamburini stays ahead, net of Koffler. But the gap between them looking less than it did before the pit stops. Reinhard Koffler's pit stop time was bang on the 2-minute 8-second mark, absolutely to the 10th, 2 minutes and 8 seconds. So that's exactly what the regulations require. So a very, very good pit stop from the MZR Motorsport Zentrum Ried team that operates the KTM. The pit stop for #1 was only half a second slower, so not much to choose between them. The pit crew's working really well here as you look at #53, Pascal Gibon, who is now up into second place because Ronnie Bremer has come into the pit lane. Pascal Gibon, very experienced racer. There is another experienced campaigner, Bonjean Ricci, who is hustling on behind Simon Birch. In has come Philippe Pret. The LP Racing team, Luca Piri is the LP of LP Racing, racer himself. And we've seen him in GT2 behind the wheel in the first season of the category. Stefan Rattel's Italian neighbour. Right, straight away, Simon Birch trying to make amends for his 5-place grid drop by doing an absolute best in the first sector. So that's the #80 KTM that is on a mission. Simon Birch, who raced in the GT3 part of the Le Mans Cup last year, adapting to GT2 machinery. There is Carlo Tamburini, whose car has fallen to 6th for the moment with the pit stop shuffling, but we'll see at the end of the lap where he's going to be. I think he's going to be 2nd, unless Alexandre Leroy pits. In the background, #10 of now, Jakob Mathiesen leaves the pit lane, ready to blast back on track. And can the #10 KTM stay in the mix for the win? What about Philippe Pret, who gets back on board and is ready to go again? And looking at lap times and sector times, there's quite a lot to shake out here before the end of the race. Right, change for the lead, because Jakob Mathiesen is going to blend back in just ahead, or is he as they get to turn 1? Tamburini lines up for a go on the inside, couldn't quite do it, and so Jakob Mathiesen comes out ahead, but that pit stop is not 2 minutes and 8 seconds, it's 2 minutes 7.3. So unless they can play a joker pit stop, there might be a story attached to the #10 KTM, but it has got out ahead, and so #10 leads the way as they wriggle now down through Virage d'Hotel down to Virage du Cap. Up the inside goes Tamburini, job done. And have a look there at Reinhard Koffler, who goes through to second place as well, and he's right on the back of the Maserati as they come up towards the approach now to the Mistral out of turn 7. It is Carlo Tamburini in the lead of the race. It is Reinhard Koffler then up into second. Matej Homola, who's taken over from Jan Krabec, has done the fastest lap of the race. So it's all coming alive, and it was pretty lively to start with. Up towards the Mistral chicane they come. Tamburini versus Koffler. Maserati versus KTM. Into the chicane. Turn through the left, then the right, then left again, back onto the Mistral. There, Jakob Mathiessen came out ahead, but now falls to third. That is erstwhile leader Alexandre Leroy into the pit lane to serve the regulation stop. And looking to see if anybody else was slightly under on the pit stops. No, just the number 10 KTM, which is already, as you can see, falling away slightly. It's third on the racetrack, but the gap second to third is widening as Reinhard Koffler pushes on now in second place. Stefan Rattel still circulating, not yet pitting. And there is Benjamin Ricci just ahead of Simon Birch, but Birch full send up the inside, goes through into Le Bousset. Increasingly, you're getting more and more young drivers, career GT drivers coming in with the AMs into GT2, and it's raising the whole level of the competition. It's making it much more dramatic, and Simon Birch there up the inside line. He has done a personal best in the middle sector. An absolute best came from Benjamin Ricci in the middle sector, but he still lost a place. Leaders gone by then. So it is Tamburini just 9/10 of a second ahead of Reinhard Koffler. But again, that KTM just ever so slightly breathless against the Maserati around here. But Koffler is always a hard charger. Don't rule him out yet. Alexandre Leroy blends back in number 24, Maserati. And so now Tamburini ahead of Koffler. And are we going to have Gilles Vannelet make his move here? Or is that... Yes, it is 87, so Gilles Vannelet looking for a way past Alexandre Leroy. Now, this is going to be for 6th place. And also now the AM lead, Leroy ahead of Gilles Vannelet, who's taken over from Jean-Luc Bobelic, remember. More seat time the drivers get in these particular cars, especially the new Maserati, the quicker they are likely to go. So Leroy here being able to push on, because it's the second stint, and therefore in many cars a different driver. The track limit warnings have now been reset. So fill your boots, some of you. Down towards the chicane comes Leroy, but he has still got Vannelet right on his tail. Go through the left, the right, Leroy just a little bit wider maybe there. And further back, look, here is Simon Birch ahead of a sideways Benjamin Ricci, and then Loris Hezemans, who's taken over from Eric de Donker, right there in the mix as well. Loris Hezemans, the Dutch silver-graded driver that was in GT World Challenge Europe Endurance last year, comes up now towards senior. Simon Birch trying to get away. Ricci trying to attack and defend at the same time. Great little battle pack this, with now just under 20 minutes of the race to go. Simon Birch runs wide up onto the curb there. Goes towards Le Bousset. The Danish driver hustles on. The two Mercedes oh so close to contact there. Look as Loris Hezemans tries to get up on the inside. The legendary Dutch Hezemans family still creating quick racing drivers, and Benjamin Ricci is going to have to get his elbows out here to hang on to this. These two both running in Pro-Am. And 5th and 6th they are arguing over right now as they come up towards the line. Carlo Tamburini is now 1 second clear of Reinhard Koffler, so the lead gap just extending a little as they come through. And Simon Birch, you can see, now up to 4th in class, starting to get away just a little in a straight line from the pack behind, except that then the power of the Mercedes does kick in by the end of the straight, and so Benjamin Ricci is that little bit nearer. Here, in the meantime, the fight between Alexandre Leroy and Gilles Vannelet continues. So Tamburini leads Koffler. Jakob Mathiessen is still 3rd, but being caught now by Matej Homola. Then you've got Leroy from Vannelet and a rather crossed up Benjamin Ricci in 8th place. There are the race leaders coming into the chicane on the Mistral then. They go left, they go right, they go left. You can see how the top two, even though after the pit stops they were behind the blue KTM of Jakob Mathiesen, have not only passed but absolutely cleared him. And finally, Vanderlei's going to line himself up for a run on the inside. This is going to be a brave, brave effort, and it doesn't work because Alexandre Leroy stands his ground on the outside line, keeps the place. Up the curb then goes Vanderlei. This, remember, for the AM Cup lead. Maserati versus Mercedes. Absolutely nose to tail. GT2 only in its 3rd season, and we've been knocking on the door of it catching alive, but it really has done this year. Bigger entry, better racing, a little bit wide up onto the curb. There goes Gilles Vanderlei in the background, so that drops him a length or so against Alexandre Leroy as they come down to Le Beausset, but the Maserati goes wide and the Mercedes catches right up as they come out of the corner. Bit of a wag from the back of the Maserati. Nose to tail, heading up towards the end of lap 14, where Carlo Tamburini still leads the way, and 17 more minutes can be found on the clock. But now for the AM lead, this is perhaps the best battle of the race. Leroy just ahead of Gilles Vanderlei. Vanderlei arguably fresher because he didn't have to do the first stint, whereas as a soloist, Alexandre Leroy and the Maserati there did. But Gilles Vanderlei hasn't yet been able to find a way past him. He tried, as we saw on the Mistral. Here they come now, then up over the line, and the margin between those two is half a second. It's game on for the class win here as they come down towards turn 1 into Verrières. Tamburini's lead overall, by the way, is down ever so slightly to 0.8 of a second. So it's close up front, and it's close here. These two 5th and 6th overall, but the AM lead is what is of main concern to them. Bear in mind also, going into race 2, that if you are 1st, 2nd, 3rd in your class, you will take an extra amount of time on the pit stop. 10 seconds extra if you're the winner, 7 if you're 2nd, and 5 if you're 3rd. And again, Benjamin Ricci hangs out the back, and this time Loris Hezemans gets up the inside, curb and all, goes through, and they rub, and Hezemans gets sideways, and he hangs on to it. That was just about to start looking ugly, wasn't it? But they got away with it. But absolutely no prisoners taken by Loris Hezemans there as he goes through. And Benjamin Ricci, delayed in all of that, he's about to get mugged if he's not careful by Philippe Pret, who comes up on the inside line. The Maserati on the Mercedes. Last of the late breakers into the chicane, and Pret goes through, recovering after his earlier spin. Remember, he got turned around. So the Maserati now up into, for that car, 9th place, and there is an investigation around Stefan Rattel's car overtaking under the safety car, so that's going to be looked at by race control as well. Brave if you take Stefan on, I would have thought. Right, so here are the race leaders, and of course the Pro-Am lead battle. Carlo Tamburini versus Reinhard Koffler. Up towards the line they come. Another one under investigation for overtaking under the safety car is Loris Hezemans, but I do seem to recall that we had Hubert Trunkenpolt's car slow and it expired, remember, on the restart. Meantime, there you've got the leaders through, and it is then the #1 Maserati, Carlo Tamburini, ahead. Look down from the drone. Here you can see, although the KTM is good on the brakes, it does lose out in a straight line. So there, Koffler closing right up through that S all the way down to Virage du Camp, and now up towards Saint-Baume. He's closer. Wait for that margin to stretch, coming onto the Mistral, where the power, the extra grunt of that Maserati is going to kick in, but Koffler, good on the brakes, will try and make some of that up once again coming into the Mistral. So frustrating for him, but the car, and this is the same in GT2 or GT4 and GT3, some cars having strengths and weaknesses in different parts of the racetrack. Down they come into the braking zone. Again, Koffler closes right up. What he's trying to do, in a sense, is use all of that experience to force a mistake out of the car ahead. Third, the change is imminent, isn't it? Jakob Mathiesen coming under attack now from Matto Homola. The gap has been coming down lap after lap after lap between them, and it's down to just 0.328 of a second. They've fallen a long way back from the leaders, but their battle is well and truly joined as they come now through that right of Senior. So Jakob Mathiesen turns through. Reinhard Koffler on his tail. And Mathiasen still third, but how much longer can his KTM fend off the similar car of the charging Hommler? Mathiasen comes now up towards the end of the lap. This is lap 16, and the pressure is certainly on. This not only is for third overall, it's third in class, so it's a battle that matters. It's not as though Mathiasen can just get out of the way and let the other car go and take points in class. He's got to fight. This is a proper battle for position. Over the timing line they go with just over 12.5 minutes still to run. They break for turn one and turn their way now on towards the exit of La Verrière. Carlo Tamburini, in the meantime, is still being caught slightly by Koffler. The gap is down to less than 0.7 of a second. It's tiny, tiny little gains, but as Tamburini hits the curb and the car has a little hop and a step, that will play into the hands of the ever so slightly smoother Koffler. Tamburini a bit wide coming out of turn 5 there. This is 6. And now back towards the Mistral. An earlier incident between Loris Hezemans and Benjamin Ricci that we saw at that part of the circuit. No further action, no further investigation necessary, say race control. And here for third place, in fairness, Jakob Mathiasen is hanging on to the place, isn't he? He's keeping Hommler at bay. Koffler has just done an absolute best in the first sector, much quicker than Tamburini by just under 0.3 of a second. He is not giving up. They've paired off a little bit. Here's the battle behind for third place as they come out of the chicane. Mathiasen ahead of Hommler, new to GT2, powering his way up towards the right-hander of Senior, and that lead gap does look less. In fact, 300ths quicker on that middle sector as well. Reinhard Koffler. Now it looks like he's being able to piece together not just sectors but a whole lap and come out quicker and closer to Carlo Tamburini. Of course, Tamburini only has to win by 1,000th as long as he wins, so now the job isn't necessarily to increase the gap, it's just to stay ahead of that KTM, and Tamburini, as an experienced GT campaigner over the last season or so, should be able to do that. But Reinhard Koffler, headlights ablaze, absolutely flinging the rather dart-like KTM across the curb there, comes up towards the Virage du Pont, rather, much, much closer now. Up to the line they come. Last time, the margin when they crossed the stripe was 0.6 of a second, 0.688. This time, as they break the beam, the answer is half a second. And the lap time, slightly better for Koffler than Carlo Tamburini as they go through. So that's the lead battle. This is lap 18, 10 minutes to go. Best lap of the race, Carlo Tamburini, 2 minutes 5.070, and he's the man in charge at the moment. But Reinhard Koffler is throwing everything at this. The battle for third has gone back out in favour of Jakob Mathiasen, hasn't it? Because he's just pulled away a little bit from Matto Hommler, half a second to the good when they went over the line. So third is Mathiasen, fourth is Hommler, and fifth is the drone, right there on the back of Matej Hommler as they come now onto the Mistral once again. The drone, a great part of the coverage that we've got this year. And here, a change as Simon Birch gets up the inside and goes ahead of Alexandre Leroy, who lost out anyway in AM to Gilles Vannelet, now loses a place overall as well. So Simon Birch up into 6th overall. Vannelet, having cleared the Maserati, is long gone up the road, but Simon Birch is after him, and he's on the attack still with 9.5 minutes still to go. To the chicane they come. So Alexandre Leroy, having inherited the lead of the class, has now lost it back again to the flying Mercedes, number 87. The car of Gilles Vannelet there with a little step over the curb, the TFT Racing Maserati. And there Hommler in the second of those two KTMs, closing on Jakob Mathiasen once again as they come out of Le Beausset. Another of the corners named after the local town, and Hommler with a tighter inside line tries to get the nose of the car turned in. A little bit wider is Mathiasen. You can see the gap that was there at the start of the lap is now a distant memory because Matej Hommler is much, much closer as they wriggle their way up towards the end of the lap. Together they run, heading for the braking zone. Hommler to the inside. Is there room? Around goes Mathiasen. Hommler tries to take evasive action. Now, was that a little tap between the two, or was that Mathiasen on the outside line losing traction? Race control will have a look at it. The net result is that Matej Hommler is up in a third place, and down to fourth is there Jakob Mathiasen. Could have been a lot worse, only one place lost, but Mathiasen goes through. But whether or not there was contact, hard to gauge from that. If it was slight, but it was certainly, whatever happened, enough to unsettle the all-blue KTM of Jakob Mathiesen. Let's have another look. Hommler dives to the inside, turns in. Still hard to gauge. I just wonder whether Mathiesen was just a little bit too quick on the outside and lost traction. I don't know, maybe there was a touch. The net result anyway is that Krabet's car with Hommler at the wheel goes third, and Ronnie Bremer's car with Mathiesen at the wheel drops to fourth. Here are the race leaders, and now Carlo Tamburini turning up the wick again because he has just done a personal best in the first sector. So he is stretching the advantage just to make sure that he doesn't have to worry too much on the last lap. So the gap is extending. Through they turn on towards Signes. The GT2 drivers having to take on liquid and get themselves ready for their second race at the end of the day. So a condensed timetable, but it's good to get them back out on track. The AMs wanting the seat time and things they've learnt in race one, they don't want to sort of forget overnight, if you like, as well. It has that benefit of putting you back on track much sooner. Further down the order, Gilles Vannelet goes through shot fifth. There's sixth, Simon Birch. Seventh there, Alexandre Leroy. Eighth place, Loris Hezemans. And ninth, after his earlier rotation, there, Philippe Pret, recovering well in his Maserati. So the Gorini-Tamburini entry that has effectively led all the way is still up front. But Loris Hezemans' Mercedes versus Philippe Pret's Maserati. This is game on. They're in different classes, but they'll fight for eighth place overall. Philippe Pret is third in AM. And getting past Hezemans won't give him second in AM, but it will get him closer to the second AM car of Alexandre Leroy. So it's certainly a move that he will need to make. And Philippe Pret, you've got to say, has been really quick in this. His lap times have been good. Big frustration that he had that spin early on in the race. The little bit of contact that rotated the car. Comes up to the line. The clock continues to tick down. And now 6 minutes and change on the clock as the leaders have gone through. And all of a sudden, Tamburini doing an even faster lap and the gap going out to over a second, 1.2 seconds now. So it's doubled in the space of a couple of laps, really. And Carlo Tamburini now looking much, much more secure up front. Simon Birch versus Gilles Vannelet. Vannelet coming back at him. Birch has gone ahead of him for fifth place, but Vannelet coming back as they drop down towards the Virage de l'Hôtel. But it's going to be the KTM, I think, now having secured that place, that will be able to motor on and pull away. Simon Birch having been a very quick racer in the Danish Super Cup and in their Super GT Championship last year. Now coming into GT2, getting more mileage, more experience, and up into fifth place. He is 7 seconds or so behind Jakob Mathiesen, but he's lapping quicker, but I think he's going to run out of time to think about getting fourth. That said, Mathiesen has had one drama, so we'll see whether he's able to get to the end now drama-free from here on in. There, Alexandre Leroy coming back at Gilles Vannelet. I don't think the AM battle is quite as over as it might have looked a few laps ago, because now that the KTM is no longer between them, that's sort of given Alexandre Leroy renewed optimism. Interesting, further back, Philippe Pret's fallen away slightly from Loris Hezemans, so some of these gaps are a little bit elasticated, but the charging Maserati there now just, what, 2-3 lengths away from Vannelet, and the margin at the start of the lap was 2.7 seconds. So Gilles Vannelet's dropped a big chunk of time on this lap, so that Alexandre Leroy is most definitely back at the races now for a class win. That's certainly a possibility. Out of Bendour they come. AM Cup, battle for first place. Confirmation, Vannelet ahead of Leroy. And Gilles Vannelet, having lost a bit of ground in that battle with Simon Birch, now again has to regroup and make sure he can keep that Maserati at bay as they come down into the tight right of Virage du Pont. Back onto the power, back up towards the line. 4 minutes remain. Leaders through. And there, as they come past the pits once again, is, you can see now, from 2.7 seconds to 0.4 of a second, the margin between Vannelet and Leroy. So it really has absolutely been hacked away by the Maserati over the space of a lap. Third in the class is Philippe Pret, who's not yet cleared Hezemans, so he's not really part of that battle pack, but it's still a fight for AM honours as they come down now towards turn 5. Through that right-hander they go, and up front Carlo Tamburini's advantage is growing. It does now look, in fairness, as though Reinhard Koffler is having to settle for second place. On board with Tamburini, goes ahead of Patrick Dinkeldine's Porsche puts a lap on that 15th place car. And Tamburini, having cleared the traffic, is getting away as now Koffler comes up, lights are flashing to warn Dinkeldine of his progress. The Porsche peels to one side and through goes Reinhard Koffler. Patrick Dinkeldine, another driver new to the GT2 Championship this year, having raced in the German Porsche Sports Cup, so if you like club level Porsche racing back home, but good to have him on an international stage as Vanderlei fends off Leroy for honours in Am. Now a flying lap is just over 2 minutes. The race leaders are coming down towards Virage Dupont, so I think they're going to squeeze 2 more laps out of the race. The one they're about to start and 1 more. And that's, in a sense, bad news for Vanderlei because it's even longer that he's got to try and preserve the class lead. Loris Hezemans goes through 8th overall, with Philippe Pret over the last couple of laps having been quicker on one and slower on the most recent. Wiper on for Alexandre Leroy, which I suspect means he's just flicked the switch in error. So busy is he in the cab as he comes now down towards the last corner of the lap, turn 15 on this configuration with the chicane. Over the line have gone the leaders, 2 seconds now, so Carlo Tamburini is away and gone. He is on target then for a maiden win in the GT2 European Series. It will be also Leonardo Garini's maiden outright win. Look down from the drone once more, and the cars come parallel to the airfield, down towards Virage de l'Hôtel. Through the right, through the left, and all of a sudden Alexandre Leroy is going to have to think about defending from Hezemans, isn't he? No longer can he really attack Vanderlei. In contrast, he's got to keep that Mercedes behind him. Again, look down from the drone. That's the exit of turn 6. Then 7 brings you onto the Mistral, that left-hand kink. Speed building as they now make the run up towards the chicane. Reinhard Koffler is being given a 10-second penalty for causing a collision. That, I think, was when Martin Koch got together with Philippe Pret early on, but it is the 812 KTM that's copping for it. It looked as though the Maserati had run wide, and as it came back on, that's where the contact was, but the KTM is being given the penalty, so apply 10 seconds to Koffler, and let's see where that drops him to. I think he'll still stay second because he's 12 seconds up on Matej Homola, but big frustration that they caught the penalty, the team will say. Up towards the line then, and the clock is into its last half a minute, so yes, 1 more lap for Carlo Tamburini as he goes across the line. Alexandre Leroy, in the meantime, under huge attack now from the Mercedes of Loris Hezemans, and Hezemans is taking Pret with him. So if Hezemans were to do a real send, it might give Pret a chance to have a go at Leroy for second in Am as well. Down their cab now towards Virage Dupont. Is the Mercedes going to be able to find a gap on the inside? No is the answer, but he did have a good think about it, Loris Hezemans. He, of course, is trying to attack and defend at the same time because he's got Philippe Pret right up behind him as they come across the line here. So the race leaders onto the last lap. There, you've got the fight on between Hezemans and Pret. Hezemans would like Pret to go away, then he can concentrate purely on what's up the road ahead of him. Pret would like Hezemans to get past Leroy, then he could have a go at attacking the Maserati. So Pret comes up to have a go on the outside line. Down they head towards Virage de l'Hôtel, and for 8th place, Hezemans stays ahead. Race leaders on the last lap, and Pret goes very, very wide, as he did early on in the race, and loses a real chunk of time there to Hezemans. That might have been the final straw, as it were, in terms of being able to come back at the Mercedes, because by running out wide, I do feel that's cost him too much time. There, in the meantime, you've got the leading Maserati, soon to become the winning Maserati, and even if Koffler were to go by, with the 10-second penalty applied to the car behind, it doesn't really make any odds now. Carlo Tamburini is a safe race winner as he makes the run up towards the line. So this new Maserati GT2 looked good, sounds good, and it's going to be a winning car as well. First time out for Leonardo Garini and Carlo Tamburini. Checkered flag awaits And it is going to be a win for Maserati, a win for Carlo Tamburini and Leonardo Guarini in the first Fanatec GT2 European Series powered by Pirelli Race of the Year. The winning margin on the track, 1.6 seconds, plus 10 for the penalty to Reinhard Koffler and Martin Koch, who are the two drivers of the second place car. Meanwhile, in AM, Gilles Vannelet has done enough, hasn't he, to get away now from Alexandre Leroy as they come up towards the Virage de la Tour, towards Virage du Pont, and then up to the checkered flag. So it's a win for Tamburini and Guarini in Pro-Am, and an AM win for Jean-Luc Bobelic and Gilles Vannelet. Checkered flag goes to the Mercedes, second in AM to Alexandre Leroy, and third to Philippe Pret, who was a very easy class leader earlier on, before that contact, before that spin, which all triggered the penalty being applied to Reinhard Koffler and Martin Koch's KTM. So Carlo Tamburini makes a very impressive debut on the GT2 European Series stage, brings Leonardo Guarini's Maserati home victorious, and you're riding on board a winning car. Another time penalty has just been given to Matej Homeler's car for causing a collision. So 89 KTM also being penalised, but it stays third. So it had pulled away so much from Jakob Mathiasen. The two penalised cars actually stay where they were in the order anyway, so it makes no difference. But the stewards applying the penalties for the two incidents there. So more from the GT2 European Series at the end of the day. The race coverage on air from around about 6:30, barring any delays in the timetable, but it'll be a race into the darkness for the GT2 drivers. So whoever does the second stint, in other words, the driver that started race 1, will have the darker conditions to play with. So Leonardo Guarini and Carlo Tamburini team up and win for Maserati ahead of Martin Koch and Reinhard Koffler, and then Jan Krabic and Matej Homeler third. Ronnie Bremer and Jakob Mathiasen fourth. Fifth, Thomas Anderson and Simon Birch ahead of the AM winning Jean-Luc Bobelic and Gilles Vannelet. Second AM, Alexandre Leroy. Eighth overall, Eric de Doncker and Loris Hezemans. Ninth, Philippe Pret, and 10th, Mauro and Benjamin Ricci. 11th, Stéphane Perrin and Jörg Wiebahn ahead of Pascal Gibon and Christophe Bourret. Stefan Rattel 13th. 14th, Hubert Tronkenpoltz with Lara Krahemer's assistance ahead of Patrick Dinkeldine. We lost Eddie Samini and Klaus Angerhofer. We lost Dennis Liebel and Dominic Olbert. They were the triggers of the safety car, remember, very early on. So the drivers now will make their way to the pit lane and then to the podium. But a very good drive for Carlo Tamburini. He will start race 2. So it's going to be Leonardo Guarini who will have, as I say, the darker track conditions to cope with late in the race. And it's one of the beauties of Paul Ricard, that you can run late into the night. We've had traditionally here the French Championship ending in October with a night race, and we've had Clio Euro Cup racing into the darkness, and there is just something about racing under the lights here into the darkness that's quite captivating. And GT cars just look absolutely ideal for it, so can't wait for later on, especially if the race is as good as that. So much happening, and it's great that now the championship, having earned its spurs, if you like, is now attracting new teams, new cars, new brands, and new drivers, and rewarding the hard work of SRO with its biggest grid yet. So to the pit lane come the cars. The top 3 in each class will be stopped at the Parc Fermé area, so the drivers can then nip up the stairs to the podium. And Carlo Tamburini arrives. Reinhard Koffler will arrive. He'll be told about the penalty, but as I say, it doesn't affect the result at all. And then the same true for Matej Homeler and Jan Krabic in third. There, Carlo Tamburini emerges from the Maserati. The Pirelli tyre technicians are there in the background, checking the tyre pressures, getting their information that they need. And it's a very happy Carlo Tamburini, understandably, who is most definitely in tune with the Maserati. So Leonardo Guarini will be on his way to go and join his teammate, his co-driver. It's just him sprinting down the pit lane, so he's almost joined his compatriot, Carlo Tamburini. Reinhard Koffler out of the KTM that he and Martin Koch have shared. And yes, the penalty drops them time, but it keeps them in second place. So Maserati win round 1 of Fanatec GT2 European Series. Carlo Tamburini, Leonardo Guarini are with Antonio Ruskin.
Well, congratulations, boys. What a way to start the season.
Yeah, I mean, the whole team has been working really hard till late night, really, in the evening. When I'm in the hotel, they're still working. So, yeah, team job always make a difference. And me and Leonardo have been driving good. So results come when we work this way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a very good fit. We have a great team, good organization. We get along very well, so it's a great start.
And you were under pressure a little bit at the end there. Talk me through your mentality.
Yeah, I mean, my first race in GT2, I'm used to GT3 that I think saves the tire a little bit better because there was some lack of grip compared to yesterday. So first few laps I had to adapt a little bit, but then it was fine. I knew the only way he could pass me was if I made a mistake, which I didn't, so all fine.
Well, congratulations, boys. Go celebrate.
Congratulations then to Carlo Tamburini and Leonardo Guarini. And the Maserati, well, it looks good, and now we know it goes as well as it looks with a win. The other cars, 7th overall, 2nd in class, and 9th overall, 3rd in class. And it'll be interesting to see with a different grid, different start drivers, how the result is going to look in race 2. Those drivers that you've just seen do stint 2 will be the start drivers for the 2nd race later on in the day. And in the case of Serhii Samini and Dennis Liebel, they will be hoping that their KTMs can be made good. It's slightly surprising that Liebel's car wasn't able to restart because, yes, it was tapped into a spin, certainly, but it didn't seem to want to refire, which is strange. Quite often you give a car around about 30 seconds to sort of cool and then be able to fire up again, but clearly it was not for doing that, otherwise it would have been able to rejoin. So the KTM teams will have a look and try to make sure that the Razzoon More Than Racing car is good for race 2, the same true of the True Racing team that operates Serhii Samini's car. Right, so there you can see the pit lane. More racing here at Paul Ricard, GT4 having race 1 today. There's the Midjet Italia series here also, and pre-qualifying a bit later on in the day for the Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe powered by AWS Endurance Cup. Busy for the spectators, busy for the fans. Let's look back then at the highlights of race 1 of the year in GT2, and it began with Leonardo Guarini grabbing the race lead as they came down into turn 1. He was being chased hard by the Maserati of teammate Philippe Pret, but Pret wasn't able to make a move and started to drop a little bit of time. There was this clash, though, going into the chicane with a sideways KTM of Dennis Liebel, then slithering back into the path of the Mercedes, and he got turned round and was unable to restart, hence safety car, just as Ronnie Bremer made his dive for 2nd place. But he checked up and therefore didn't force the issue. On the restart he did, but then Philippe Pret got a bit crossed up with Martin Koch. He was turned around, he dropped down the order, and Koch got a 10-second penalty. After the pit stops, it was Jakob Mathiasen who relayed Ronnie Bremer to take over the race lead, but it wasn't long before a charging Carlo Tamburini made his move and went through on the inside line. That was for P1, and up into 2nd place went Reinhard Koffler, who tried to squeeze the KTM up on the inside line, but could not quite do it. In AM, change for the lead as Gilles Vannelet went ahead of Alexandre Leroy, and for 3rd place overall, there was this great battle between Mathias Hommela and Jakob Mathiasen, but there was contact, and for that, Hommela got a 10-second penalty as well. To the checkered flag, though, Carlo Tamburini, race winner first time out in GT2, and the fastest lap of the race as well. A great start for the LP Racing Maserati. Carlo Tamburini and Leonardo Guarini win here at Paul Ricard. So drivers will make their way to the podium. The Paul Ricard circuit having this GT festival, and of course GT2, GT4 run as support races to GT World Challenge Europe, which for the first time in about 6 years doesn't start in Italy. Drivers making sure they have the correct patches on their overalls. Carlo Tamburini nearest to us, and I'm very happy Gilles Vanillet will be there as a class winner. So the Pirelli hats go to the winners. The winning team, LP Racing, represented on the podium as well. And as soon as everybody is ready, as soon as everyone's got the correct clothing, correct hat, sponsors' patches ready, we can have the drivers call forward to the podium. So there, the AM and Pro-Am teams. Leonardo Guarini gets his hat ready, and the instruction will be given in a moment to call the drivers forward there to the podium. Matej Homela and Jan Krabec for third place in Pro-Am. For second place, Reinhard Koffler and Martin Koch step forward. KTM third, KTM second. It's also KTM fourth and fifth. But it is a Maserati that takes honours, and so that means that for the top step of the podium, Leonardo Guarini and Carlo Tamburini for LP Racing step forward as race winners here at Paul Ricard. They make their way to the podium. Leonardo Guarini's first outright win, Carlo Tamburini's first race in the championship, and what a way to start your association with GT2. To the top step of the podium then go Leonardo Guarini and Carlo Tamburini, winners of Fanatec GT2 European Series powered by Pirelli. Race 1 here in Paul Ricard. National anthem for the winning team, the Italian LP Racing squad, and now from Pirelli, the trophies come. Matteo Braga, the activities manager for Pirelli, steps forward with the bronze, and then the silver trophies for the third and for the second place teams. There'll be the team's trophy for LP Racing as well. And then the gold trophies for Leonardo Guarini and for Carlo Tamburini. Whether they do much with the champagne, given there's another race to come later in the day, remains to be seen. Partly depends how many sets of overalls they've got. It might just be one vast party at the end of the day if they can do a double. But the drivers all together with trophies. The photographers shepherding everybody together for the winners group photograph. And then all good. Trophies held aloft. 6 happy drivers, 1 happy team here at the Circuit de Castellet. Race 1 done, won by Maserati, by Leonardo Guarini and Carlo Tamburini. The AM podium coming up, and of course race 2 a little bit later on in the day. And selfies taken by drivers. Jan Krabec and Matej Homela for third place, but making sure they've got the photographs they want as well. The podium camera there shows Carlo Tamburini drop the champagne to the team, or think about it, whether that's a sensible thing. Debate. Glass on the pit lane never goes down really well, does it? So the Pro-Am teams make their way back to the paddock, and the AM drivers will start their celebrations very shortly. Let's have a look down then at the foot of the steps where the trophies await, where the drivers are ready as well. And this, the winning car, the Mercedes from the Acodis ASP squad. So even though we don't have Jérôme Policon's team on the GT World Challenge Europe grid. They're still here and still representing Mercedes-AMG for their customers as well. So Jean-Luc Bobelic and Gilles Vannelet, the winners in AM. And they will come to the podium very shortly, along with the runner-up Alexandre Leroy and the third-place driver Philippe Pret. A good drive by both Jean-Luc Bobelic and Gilles Vannelet, because it wasn't an easy run. They had to do quite a bit of work to secure that class win. Philippe Pret, frustrated no doubt about his spin, and Alexandre Leroy steps forward for second place. Their battle to be renewed later on in the day. But the top step of the podium is going to go to two great characters of French GT racing for the Acodis ASP team that is represented on the podium, because Jean-Luc Bobelic and Gilles Vannelet in a moment will step forward, and no doubt will be all smiles then. Two gentlemen racers, but great characters, great enthusiasts, and they sprint their way to the podium. Jean-Luc Bobelic is there first, Gilles Vannelet joins him, and the Mercedes drivers from Acodis ASP win the AM class here in GT2. Gilles Vannelet leaps into the air, and the drivers now ready for the national anthem. Bravo Gilles Vannelet and Jean-Luc Bobelic, the class winners. Now the trophy for third place to Philippe Pret. Perhaps as Jean-François Toulis from Total Energy hands over the trophies, perhaps that third place doesn't really reflect the pace of Philippe Pret. But I'm sure there will be silver or gold trophies, if not today, during the season, because the pace that he had early on was very good indeed. For second place, Alexandre Leroy gets his trophy, the team's trophy given to Acodis ASP, and now the class winners Gilles Vannelet and Jean-Luc Bobelic receive their trophy also. So they're happy drivers, happy team. Acodis ASP coming out on top of our GT2 AM fight. Everybody now getting together for the photograph, and then the celebrations can continue. So race 2 coming up just before 6:45, and we'll see whether it can be a double in any of the classes. But Gilles Vannelet and Jean-Luc Bobelic celebrate right now, and we look forward to the second race to come later on this evening, with GT4 action and GT3 pre-qualifying to come before all of that. It's been a great start to the year, though, for Fanatec GT2 European Series, powered by Pirelli. New drivers, new cars, and a really good competitive battle all the way through the field. Join us for race 2 a little bit later on. It promises to be another real spectacle going into the darkness. But for now, from Paul Ricard, from David Addison, goodbye.